Brandon Lewis here, excited to be with you for the Tennessee Conservative News Break, where we bring you the headlines across Tennessee, nationally when we think it's pertinent, and locally here in Hamilton County. I'm glad that you are joining us. I think over the weekend, we passed 5,000 plus Facebook followers and subscribers, and we're using this platform and our email newsletter to make sure that we help hold Republicans accountable to voting their conservative values, in addition to making sure that conservatives have news that comes to them without all of the liberal bias that I'm sure you hate. If you have yet to sign up for our newsletter so that we can get this information to you directly, go to TennesseeConservativeNews.com there. And I do have a big, huge announcement today, and it's pretty big. We've now got in our hands, see if you can see this here, proud Tennessee conservative tumblers. Yes, any liquid that you drink from this, it helps with virility. It will extend your life. It will add at least 10 IQ points to your intelligence. And any liquid drank from this might also give you a buzz. I don't know. None of this has been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. However, if you give $25 as a recurring monthly contribution, we'll send you one of these bad boys. We only have 49 of them in stock. I gave one of them to someone who has helped our publication. So if you give $25 or more, you can help our publication. Make that a recurring contribution, which means monthly, and we will send you this tumbler out, and it's our way of saying thanks. Now, if that's too rich for your blood, we'll give you 2 proud Tennessee conservative bumper stickers for any donation of any amount, regardless of whether it's recurring or not. But to get the tumbler, you gotta pull out the big bucks, $25 a month or more. But we need those recurring donations so we can pay our reporters, and it helps us really budget what we do here, because this just comes out of old Brandon's back pocket for right now. And if I can reduce that, I'm sure my wife would really appreciate it. So thank you. So let's get right into the news. So Tennessee Teacher Discipline Act takes another step forward toward law, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this here. So the bill passed the Senate with a 25-8 vote in March 11th and will be voted on again in the House. While the House approved this legislation once before, they must now vote on the amendment so it can be sent to Governor Bill Lee for signing. House Bill 16 originally passed with a 91-0 vote in June, but the pandemic delayed it being seen by the Senate. And this bill is meant to help teachers more effectively discipline students who cause continuous disruptions in the class. That would have been me. I cause continuous and constant disruptions in class. So this is probably a law that they made for people like me. This process includes 6 steps the teacher must follow before the student can be permanently removed. They have to document any previous actions taken, offer to send them to a guidance counselor, arrange a meeting with parents, guardians, and more. This 6-step process is put in place to make sure the actual removal of the student is the last resort. I don't know if you can remember, but when I was in school, you'd be in a class of people, right? And everyone would be in some class rather that was rowdy and was crazy, and everyone was disruptive and throwing things and talking to one another. And then all of those same students would get in the hallway. They'd spend 5 minutes in the hallway, and then they go to another teacher's room. In that teacher's room, everyone was quiet as a church mouse, and they were like super good and well behaved. And often, I think that it has more to do with the tone and tenor set by the teacher. So hopefully this will help some of them discipline some of these darling children. Next story. Most Tennesseans support increased higher education opportunities. A new survey revealed that the majority of Tennesseans want to see new opportunities for higher education in the state. According to the survey, 76 or 78% of respondents favor an increase in access to higher education, specifically in rural areas. I don't blame you. It's hard to find opportunities. I grew up in a rural area, and if folks, kids in particular, if they don't get into school quickly and if you don't give them something to do, they get in trouble. The most respondents also feel that the state should prioritize affordability of higher education programs. 53% believe that state funding for higher education should be increased. and 69% that feel that Tennessee's Hope Scholarship should be available to individuals enrolled in any state-approved online university. I'd agree with that, not just those enrolled in those offered by 2- and 4-year universities in Tennessee. Good luck getting that one past the education lobby in Tennessee. They want to see all that state money come right back to state schools. 89% of those responding also believe that a better educational workforce is necessary for Tennessee to continue to compete economically with other states. I'll tell you, well, as I look back now as an entrepreneur over my educational experience in a graduate and undergraduate, I really have to be honest. My graduate degree, if you're going to run a business, just it ended up being a bunch of people reading books to me about things they had not done and then testing me on it. And I have a very high reading comprehension, and I did not require that. I enjoyed my undergraduate experience, but when I look at the expense of higher education now, and I look at the time value of money, meaning what could you have done with your opportunity, I often think that a lot of students would be a lot better off working for free for someone to see if it's the kind of work that they like and getting more practical education. I believe one of the biggest issues we face in Tennessee is that the traditional educational model of taking a bunch of irrelevant courses and then going out into the workforce is just not as applicable as it used to be. And if anything has shown that, I think COVID has shown that, and hopefully we'll have more money spent on practical vocational things in our state and for people to do other types of programs that will make them employable. Like the number one reason that education was originally around was to simply help people develop the vocational skills they needed to be successful. And more, as you look at the return on investment from a lot of these folks that graduate from these paper factories, they're not able to be placed in the job market like they should be. And I think that's a shame. Next story. Your report shows state and local tourism performed relatively well in light of COVID. The Tennessee Vacation Report showed that 2019 brought 23 million in revenue expenditures and was the 10th consecutive year of growth. However, when the pandemic came in full force in April, Tennessee consumer spending was down 25%, and the U.S. consumer spending as a whole was down 32%. The Outdoor Industry Association reported significant increases in running, cycling, hiking, bird watching, and camping participation. Hey, that's me. I'm going camping this weekend. I participated a lot in that camping stuff. Southeast Tennessee's outdoor recreational areas included the Cherokee National Forest. I love it. State parks and Ocoee and Hiwassee rivers reflect in the numbers of visitors over the year. Jenny Veal, tourism coordinator of Southeast Tennessee Tourism Associates, said that generating economic impact not only for our large cities, but for small communities that represent the authentic Tennessee experience in so many ways, from food and music and history and festivals. The last year has been difficult by Tennesseans to persevere, and I agree. A lot of these small counties and towns, if you're from the Ocoee area, where tons of the revenue is generated by whitewater rafting, or if you have a state park that is in your area that it's rural, people come in, and this is me. I pack up my camper, I get going toward that area, and then I always typically stop off in that community, get groceries, put it in the cooler. I spend money coming and going as I go camping or doing other recreational activities. And if you've got a great city where you can actually go do something other than the outdoor activity, if you go to a restaurant, if there's shopping, that stuff brings a lot of revenue to your town, and it helps people get jobs. And we need a lot of that. Let's move on to national. 11 states file motion to intervene in immigration public charge rule, which is important. 11 states have filed a motion to intervene in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals case over challenges to a 2018 public rule change that required immigrants coming to the U.S. to prove they should financially support themselves. This is just crazy to me. If you're going to immigrate into any country, I think it is incumbent upon the individuals governing that country to have people come in that can live on their own, can provide value, can give back. This nonsense of having people come across the border or from wherever and to immediately be placed on the public dole at your expense and my expense so that they can hang out here in the land of milk and honey, I don't agree with that. People should have to pay their own way, and if you can't prove that you can pay your own way, then you maybe immigrate somewhere else. That's not a big concern, but it's increasingly a huge financial burden especially on the states, which is what this is about. The Biden administration removed the rule change, um, and effective March 9th, subsequently, the Department of Homeland Security announced that on March 11th, they will no longer apply the rule. Could you imagine? No, you come on in. You don't have to support yourself. You don't have to prove that you can support yourself. Previously, family-sponsored immigrants were required to fill out an affidavit of support, which the DHS also withdrew. And now the new DHS policy reverts to Clinton-era 1999 policy that allowed immigrants to come to the United States and enroll in taxpayer-funded welfare programs. This is great. In the middle of a struggling job market, the best thing that we can do, right, is to bring a bunch of people into our country that can either take away jobs from Americans, because competition's competition. You may not like the statement, but it's factually accurate. And then, oh, by the way, not only can you compete for jobs, if you don't make it in the job market, then we'll just take money out of people's pocket that are working, and we'll fund you. No big deal. Crazy. On the same day as the rule change was revoked, 11 Republican attorneys filed a motion to intervene in a case on appeal related to the matter. In their brief, they argued that removing the rule change was a reckless violation of federal law that will create another national crisis and cost taxpayers and states roughly $1 billion. It's amazing. It is amazing. What we're doing makes no sense. Moving to the next one, national story. 18 states seek to stop California from establishing a nationwide climate change policy. Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita wants to stop what he thinks is California's attempt to establish a nationwide climate change policy, and he hopes the U.S. Supreme Court will help. Rokita, along with 17 other states, filed a brief with the Supreme Court on Thursday asking the court to override an appeals court decision that allowed a lawsuit filed by San Francisco and Oakland to remain in state court. Both cities sued to hold several major fossil fuels companies liable for the cost of climate change. They're going to hold privately held American companies financially responsible for climate change. What about China? What about India? What about all these third world countries? What about places in Europe, Russia, etc., who are, compared to us, we are squeaky clean in this country, comparatively speaking, to the world's greatest polluters. And you want to punish the people that are already providing jobs and trying to support their communities with employment. The cities claim in their lawsuit that companies have broken common law of public nuisance by producing and selling fossil fuels. That's California for it. In the brief, Rokita argued that federal law gives the companies a right to have their claims heard by a federal court rather than a state court. Rokita wrote in the brief that by allowing the case with such a national scope to be handled in the California state courts, the federal appeal courts thereby excludes other states from the climate change policymaking process and threatens to undermine the cooperative federalism model that has long been used in environmental problems. This is another one of those cases of California, because they are the largest state in the union and they put all of these requirements on products that come in, services that come in, things that are produced there and exported. They put huge burdens, that state does. If you look on the side of packaging, if you look at different things, California puts huge financial burdens on not only people that do business in their state, but people all over the United States, because when you make something, often there may be some weird, obscure rule, and you got to comply with California, even though it's produced in Tennessee, if you're going to sell it. Otherwise, you have to keep it out of that market, which is very difficult. And so they are constantly ruining other economies with their random, arbitrary, and usually capricious laws. So we see a lot of that. Almost a year ago, California became the first state to issue a stay-at-home order. 1 year ago, as coronavirus spread across the country, California was the first state to give over new residents to stay at home unless engaged in essential activities. This is good old Governor Gavin Newsom. All these rules are for thee, but not for me. He's out there gallivanting, doing whatever he wants to, attending private dinner parties. But everybody else, all the peons and the plebs, you and me, we can't do that. Over the following 3 weeks, 42 governors would follow suit. South Carolina was the last state to issue an order in April 7th. All 24 Democratic governors and 19 of 26 Republican governors issued stay-at-home orders in their state. Arkansas, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, and Wyoming did not issue stay-at-home orders. And to me, people keep people brag about some of our Republican governors in Tennessee and other states that were less onerous in thwarting, in my opinion, people's civil and individual and liberties, their economic liberties, to really take a sledgehammer to a gnat for most of the population with these stay-at-home orders that crippled and killed many small businesses and really, I think, tore a big hole in the fabric of our country and our social webbing, shut down churches, etc. And I'm sorry, just because you made a less crappy decision than most governors doesn't mean you made a good one. I'll say that again. Just because you make a less crappy decision than most people does not mean you made a good decision. And so a lot of people want to pat themselves on the back in leadership because they made less crappy decisions. Well, that's great, but there were a lot of Republican governors that just made what, in my opinion, is the right decision, which is to allow the maximum amount of liberty and to allow people to make their own decisions regarding their health, which I think is what should happen in every instance. And I will support candidates and people that do that. And I think you should too. Here's local. Chattanooga launches a new 311 app and website to streamline resident requests. The new app is called My Chattanooga, designed to replace the current Chats 311 app. According to Team 311, the new app improves usability, communication, and ensures citizens have access to the latest and greatest the city has to offer. If you can ever get them to come out and do anything, residents can create their own profiles and save their addresses and contact information. The app allows people to submit requests for publicly or um, privately generated requests, notifications of the status of requests throughout the life cycle, and the app allows users to be notified of what days they'll have trash or recycling pickup. That could be good for people moving into town. And users can view their neighborhood information, such as park locations, youth and family development centers, and the closest branches of the library. If I don't know if they're even open. I think they've been closed forever. So you could look at the branches; they'll just be closed. Thanks to Mayor Burke. That's really helpful, buddy. And maybe somebody could put in a request. If you're watching this and you live in and around Hamilton County, maybe you could put in a request for them to pick up all the trash that's piled all over the city in that new app. And maybe somebody would pick some of that stuff up because we are not looking like the scenic city here in Chattanooga in many parts. We're looking more like the trashy city, which is not what it looked like 20 years ago when I moved here. So those are your headlines. Those are your headlines. Things getting a little bit better, moving in the right direction. I hope so. I hope you've been following a lot of the legislative things that are going on in the House and the Senate. We're going to be bringing you some more reporting on that. We've got some really important pieces of legislation that will impact you personally with businesses compelling people to take medical procedures or wear medical devices. Same thing in employment. So make sure that if you are a conservative and you are paying attention, do go to the State House and the State Senate website. Take a look at what they're trying to do in some of these committees and what they're going to be voting on and not voting on, because it's going to impact your life. And we'll be bringing you some information about that, how you can reach out and encourage Republicans to be conservative as they look at these bills and allow them for general votes. If you do like what we do, please go subscribe. Again, we reached over 5,000 people in our Facebook likes and followers. Thanks to you. Many of you have reached out to me, have shared information, have forwarded it to other conservatives that like, and who trust you to recommend news sources to them. If you give us any amount of money, to keep it from just coming out of mine, as we go providing news and information to conservatives, if you would, you'll get this Proud Tennessee Conservative bumper sticker for any amount. And if you give $25 recurring monthly, we will send you one of 49. There are only 49, actually 48, because I have drank out of this one and I gave one away. So we have 48 of these puppies left, and we'd love to send you one. As I mentioned, they do have magical properties. Just drinking from it makes you 10 times smarter than the average liberal, which probably would have happened if you had not drank out of this at all. But if you give, we'll send you that. It makes you more virile. You can jump higher, run faster, and you will make more money if you give us $25 or more as a recurring support. It really helps us figure out what our budget's going to be so we can pay our reporters, chase down these stories, and pay for the overhead. Well, I'm Brandon Lewis with Tennessee Conservative News. I've enjoyed it. Thanks so much for all your kind comments and shares on social media, for reaching out to me. We've had so many people just try to help with this publication, and it means a great deal, because I know we're looking for a common place to get our news. We're looking for a common community to involve ourselves in, and I'm just glad you're here. Glad you're being a part of it. I'll see you tomorrow with the Tennessee Conservative News Break. Until then, I'm Brandon Lewis, signing off. Take care.